Humatsquayo, Eoch Tenoya, Senaqwila, Quiansna, Tenat Chantlaslahan, Okomeo, E Anwanaux Titameo, Tahumatsquiam, Taslawat Ath, E Squahotmish, Okomeo, Chenquinmantomia, Quisnatlax, Atiti, Teats Seats, Yetwan Hathan Squallowin. Greetings, everybody. My name is Senaqwila. I'm from the Squahotmish people. Here we're in the Vancouver area. We are the traditional, unceded, the stolen lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. It gives me good feelings in my heart to be able to share my language with you all today. For the Squamish people, we speak the Squahotmish Snatchem. That's our language and it's based on our landscape and our waters. And our other language of the land here by our neighbors, our relatives, the Musqueam and Tsleil-Waututh, they speak the Hunkkaminam language. So thank you all for being here and to share my words to bring good feelings in your heart and mind. Úsem, hoichucha. I want to share the meaning and the story behind the song that I'm going to share with you. So this song comes from one of our CMs, our respected leaders. Sapluk, Chief Joe Capilano, went over to England, and this song was sung to show the feelings that our people have. In the 1900s, in 1906, they traveled there and they said, we see all of this colonization that's happening within our home, within our territories, and we do not allow, we're never giving up our connection and our love for Mother Earth and for our traditional teachings. So this is a very beautiful song that shows us we have always been Stelmok as Indigenous people, and we will always be here practicing our ways. Úsem. Hope, hope, hey, achaya. Hope, hope, hey, achaya. Oh, hey, 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 achaya. Hope, hope, hey, achaya. Hope, hope, hey, achaya. Oh, hey, 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 achaya. Hope, hope, hey, achaya. Hope, hope, hey, achaya. Oh. Chenquinmantomia, thank you all for hearing and feeling the song that I have to share with you today. Hoichucha.
Hello, my name is Mirna Zagar and I'm the Executive Director here at the Dance Center. Welcome to the 13th Biennial Dance in Vancouver, an event designed to connect practitioners from around the world with our community here in British Columbia, in Western Canada, on the Pacific Rim. It's also designed as a showcase for a range of works that might appeal to local audiences, as well as a way of exploring an entry into contemporary dance, and all in an effort to further contextualize and position BC's contemporary dance scene. I offer you my greetings from the location of Scotiabank Dance Center, located downtown on the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh nations, on the lands that are today recognized geographically as Vancouver. This is a big year for the Dance Center because we also celebrate the 20th anniversary of Scotiabank Dance Center. And I hope you'll get a chance to see a little bit as I take you on tour. I truly believe that dance in Vancouver and how we envisioned it, this edition in particular, provides a unique opportunity for you to expand your knowledge of the Canadian dance scene, and in particular about this really diverse dance community that I have and my colleagues here at the Dance Center have a great pleasure to work with year-round. I'm sure you'll agree that these are no ordinary times, and our curators, Angela Conquet from Melbourne, Australia, and Michelle Olson and Starr Muranko, co-directors of Raven Spirit Dance from here in BC, have responded with a distinctive approach to the challenges the pandemic has presented to us all. And they did all of this with so much thought and care that I am simply in awe. And I hope it will inspire and not only provoke you. Angela, Michelle, and Starr were charged to respond to the questions that resonate to what is happening in the world today, starting from looking at how the role of dance is transforming and changing and reflecting the issues the world is facing today, considering also time and location and new ways of collaborations. Among questions they asked are those that consider why we gather, why we dance, why and what we witness, and how do we respond to all this and the changes that are coming or have arrived. Through the rich dialogues and the program that the three curators had put together, I'm sure that we likely will not find the responses to these questions, but I'm also very confident that these questions and the program itself will foster rich, thoughtful, provoking, inspiring dialogues and exchanges of experience and knowledge among our diverse communities, but also around the world, the communities that we hope are joining us these days. And as we reflect together on some very real, tangible issues impacting our society and the dance of today and that of tomorrow. I believe that this edition of Dance in Vancouver embraces the times we live and allows for innovative experimentation and inquiry too into how we create, how we collaborate, how we view and disseminate dance, not only virtually as we witness coming back to in-person experiences, but also what are the new learnings of the past 18, 19 months since COVID hit us all, and also the learnings from the Indigenous perspectives and other cultures, especially as we here live in such a multicultural and diverse society. I look forward to witnessing, listening, engaging, and sharing in all of these experiences that Angela, Michelle, and Starr have put together, along with my wonderful staff and all the artists and facilitators that have come together, each in their own way, contributing to this edition of Dance in Vancouver. And last but not least, I want to extend a thank you to our Canadian funders, because during the pandemic they have not left the arts behind. And a thank you therefore to Canada Council for the Arts, the Department of Canadian Heritage on the regional level, the Government of BC through the BC Arts Council, and to the City of Vancouver through the Office of Cultural Affairs. For this particular edition, special funding has also come to facilitate the dialogues and furthering the connectivity between Australia and Canada. And so a heartfelt thank you to Australian Arts Council and to the Canadian Consulate in Sydney, Australia, for their contribution. Truly enabled us to engage in this hybrid version of Dance in Vancouver. I want to say thank you to Raquel Alvaro and Heather Bray, who have patiently come and done the changes, and there were many and they kept coming and probably are not over, but all this is part of creating the back-end dynamics to bring forward a program that I'm sure you will enjoy in. And once again, thank you to the curators, Angela Conquet, Michelle Olson, and Starr Muranko, and to everyone involved and engaged behind the scenes as well. Welcome to Dance in Vancouver. Enjoy, and I look forward to seeing you on screen, if not somewhere out there. Bye for now.
Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Angela Conquet. I'm the international guest curator of this edition of Dance in Vancouver. I speak to you from Australia, from the lands of the Wiradjuri people, of the Kulin Nation, lands which have always been and will always be Aboriginal. I pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and I extend this respect to the traditional custodians of the ancestral, traditional and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish and Tsleil-Waututh nations, lands on which I have been invited to walk on from afar. When we live in countries such as Australia and Canada, and when we work in dance, with dance, it is impossible not to think that feet have been dancing on these lands for millennia. And it is also impossible to not wonder what it might mean to dance in these current times. This is precisely the question that myself, with my two fellow co-curators, Michelle Olson and Starr Muranko, we have chosen to dwell on for this edition. We wonder why, in these unusual times, it is important for dance to be witnessed, to be danced, to be made. And it is so that this edition has turned into business as unusual. Unusual because the pandemic has affected the very DNA of dance. For dance to exist, there needs to be movement and touch and breath, and none of this has been possible for a while. For dance to make meaning, we need to be able to gather together as an audience. For dance to exist, we need to remember that we are more than zooming heads and shoulders, that we have a body, that we are our bodies, and that bodies tell stories, stories of now and stories that are ancestral. And this is precisely what dance does, and this is precisely the invitation that we are extending to you. With Michelle and Starr, we have imagined that these unusual times were precisely the time to invite you to return to the rituals of witnessing dance, to watch with attention and intention how dance gathers us to sense together, and in that togetherness we become community, and when there is community we find our senses of belonging. This is how dance grounds us and holds us, and this is what we're hoping that you will be experiencing. Sadly, I will not be able to be present with you in Vancouver this year, but in the absence of the presence, there is always an exercise of imagination, and this is precisely yet another layer of our invitation. Dance has many ways of being and of doing, and while you step into a theatre to watch dance live or online, there are also many other ways to witness it, to feel it, and to imagine it. Just turn your head, you might see it somewhere in a corner, or you might be feeling it as you're calling a scribe at the other end of the world and tell them about how what dance does to you, or as you become an avatar to play a dance on a virtual platform. Imagination is a form of witnessing dance, and in that imagination we become present. Being present and feeling present is perhaps precisely what we need to be in these current times. I would like to express my deepest gratitude to Michelle and Starr, who have walked me on this journey to build Dance in Vancouver this year with so much complicity, generosity and care. From the bottom of my heart, I would like to thank Mirna, Zagar and the incredible teams at Dance Centre in Vancouver for having trusted us with this vision and with this invitation. And last but far from least, I would like to thank all the artists who have agreed to respond to our invitation and all the artists with whom I have been in conversation this year. It has been a great journey. You have made me feel very welcome, and this is what great communities do. Enjoy Dance in Vancouver 2021, and thank you.
Hi, my name is Michelle Olson, and I'm the co-artistic director of Raven Spirit Dance, and I'm from the Trondequichin First Nation.
Hi, my name is Starr Muranko, and I'm also co-artistic director at Raven Spirit Dance, and I'm from the Moose Cree First Nation in Northern Ontario.
We're both really excited to be a part of Dance in Vancouver this year. Over the last year, in conversation with Angela, we've came up with a lot of, we talked a lot, and the questions that really we drew out of all those conversations were, why do we dance and why do we gather? We are in a moment to answer these questions. So this Dance in Vancouver captures our responses individually and collectively and offers us the opportunity to drop inward in a new way, so we can reaffirm, discover, and reclaim why we dance. Dance is the heart of being human, and with this fierce love, we will be able to truly see and meet the challenges that the pandemic, racial injustice, and climate crisis has laid at our feet. So together we do this hard work, and I'm so glad to be dancing with you.
And so in that spirit, we invite you to join us on this journey of our 2021 edition for Dance in Vancouver. We have grounded our curatorial intention and vision in an Indigenous worldview, centering the importance and value of relationships, deep listening, and giving space to ideas, voices, and ways of being that have not always been heard. We have invited Indigenous artists and leaders to join us in creating a container and a context from which we all can enter into this year's Dance in Vancouver, with open eyes, with open ears, and with an open heart. And so we invite you now to take a deep breath with us from wherever you are in the world as we begin our 2021 Dance in Vancouver. We've invited artist Sierra Tasi Baker to be sharing 2 of her films, followed by Tasha Faye Evans, who will also share a film, and then we will lead right into our keynote conversation with 2 amazing Indigenous artists and leaders, Dalisa Pigram from Australia and Yvette Nolan from Canada. Thank you so much, and we look forward to connecting soon.
Thank you.
You asked what it feels like to belong so completely to a territory. I belong so completely to this land that when I walk on the ground, I know that the bones of my ancestors are there to greet me. that their blood is in the roots, that their voices are in the trees, the stones are soft for the many hands my ancestors have run over them. I belong so completely to this land that when I ask the ferns for directions, they point to the ocean. And when I meet the ocean, my feet curve to match the stones, so when I run barefoot over jagged rocks, I move with ease. And when I step on barnacles, I avoid bloodying my toes. As I dip my feet into the water and call out to Orca, Orca remembers me. Orca knows my name. Orca is as ancient as we are. Orca's ancestors knew my ancestors, and now we know each other. My family is so ancient that the eagles, the otters, the raven, and the wolves know us by name. They know our family as we know theirs. I belong so completely to this land that I crave the salt and fat of the ocean's treasures, and that these things make my skin gleam and my hair shine. When I eat our relative, the salmon, I see my grandmothers there and my grandfathers, asking for me to nourish myself, my ancestors wrapping me in woven Salish shawls made of mountain goat hair, berries, and cedar, old hands braiding my hair with veins like rivers and mountain peaks. I am woven into this land. I belong so completely to this land that I can ask Fairy its name and it will tell me. I belong so completely to this land that when I stand in a cedar forest, watching every sunset and every sunrise my ancestors ever told, my eyes shine with an orange copper sun. I know I am held here by the very nature and the very cobalt blue sky that birthed me. I am Squamish. This land knows me, and I know this land.
first seed that planted and grew and grew and grew. I am your prayers. I am all your dreams wrapped into me. I am your every fall and rise, and fall and rise, again and again. When I fight and lose, and fight and lose, it is your voice that sings mine, and my daughters after me. We are a prayer amongst a long line of prayers. At the core of me is you, the first seed that planted and grew and grew and grew. I am your prayers. I am all your dreams wrapped into me. I am your every fall and rise, and fall and rise, again and again.
Welcome, everybody. I'd like to introduce you to our keynote conversation for Dance in Vancouver 2021. I am currently on, the Dance in Vancouver happens on the traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. And I am honored to be doing this work on this land. I would like to, my name is Michelle Olson, and I'm from the Trondequichin First Nation, and I'm also the co-artistic director of Raven Spirit Dance, and also a co-curator for Dance in Vancouver this year. So I'd like to just share the floor and let our guests introduce themselves. Thank you.
So, ngayon na loal dalia, ngayon nga mulan yarong ang buro, nyamba buro jira yarong ang ngarangonel, bugari garanyuran jaringun buro mangara. Thank you for having me. My name is Dalisa Pigram, and I come from Yawuru country, and I was born and raised here in Yawuru country, which is a small town known also as Broome in the northwest of Western Australia. And I've been privileged to be born into the Yawuru people. I acknowledge my elders, past and present, and thank them for nurturing our cultures and keeping them strong. But I also acknowledge the history of my town and the pearling industry, which also I share ancestors with Malay and Filipino cultures and people, and proud of the unique mix that Broome people generally have. And I'm very privileged to be part of conversations today on dramaturgy, Indigenous dramaturgies.
Thank you.
Gwech, Talia, Kwe, Hani, Yvette Nadižnikas, Giraganzi B Nondanjba. My name is Yvette Nolan. My people are from Kiraganzi B Algonquin First Nation in Quebec, but I am beaming in from Saskatchewan, where I live, which is Cree territory. It's Treaty 6 territory here, and many nations have lived here: Nakota, Dakota, Lakota, the Dene before that, and it is also commonly referred to as the homeland of the Métis. So I am a guest here inadvertently because my mother was taken to residential school when she was a child and never found her way back. And so I was born here in the prairie. So I am a prairie girl and deeply connected to the land that I stand on here in Saskatchewan, but also the land all over this country. Everything I do is informed by this land on which I stand. And thanks, Michelle, for having us into this conversation. It's so great to meet Dalisa after hearing so much about her work for so long. And and finding the connections as we've been finding in sort of all of our practices.
And the title of our keynote is Where We Stand, which I think is so, can really ground us in our diving into Indigenous dramaturgies and how these ways of seeing and being guide us through our work and through our life. It's an opportunity for DIV audiences to consider what it might mean to really listen, to truly belong, and to connect to the lands that hold our dancing feet. So, and I think, so let's dive in. I think, who wants to start talking about how, what does Indigenous dramaturgies mean to you and how does that live in your work, in your life?
Well, if I may, Yvette.
Absolutely.
I'm co-artistic director of a company called Muranko here in Australia. My co-artistic director, Rachel Swain, Pakia, originally New Zealand from Aotearoa, but has been living in Australia for more years than her youth. So she and I have been working for over 27 years together. And our kind of view on Indigenous dramaturgies and how we incorporate that into the work that we make and create with other artists has actually been born out of everyday conversations as artists sharing a space together. Often that space has been in the dirt or up against an escarpment or by a riverbed, or in the early days, working in Arnhem Land with the Gunwinko people of a small community called Gunbalanya, helping them to find the language and the form to depict the Mimi spirits, so spirits that come from the dreaming, or from Bugarigara or Jang stories, as they would speak. And that in itself was a huge challenge with diverse disciplined artists, but also culturally Indigenous people from small towns, Indigenous people from small communities, remote communities, non-Indigenous people from around the world, working in both production and in the actual live performance, in the acrobatic stilt kind of form of physical theatre, plus traditional dance, and all these elements that we had to work out what was the best way to tell these stories, and that shared responsibility. So I think artistically, our view on Indigenous dramaturgies has grown from those experiences of sitting in the dirt together, figuring out how best to represent the stories of our people, and to communicate meaning and understanding of something that you're also trying to teach at the same time as work these things out with non-Indigenous people. And that kind of responsibility to share with each other in a reciprocal way that benefits all. I guess that's where we started, but we went other places, but I'll let Yvette speak now.
That's so great, because like I had to do all this mind shifting while I was listening to you talk, because you're like my colleague who's Pakeha, and I'm like, wait a second, but Dalia's in Australia, and I know Pakeha is language from Te Reo Maori, which is New Zealand, and then you went on to describe the New Zealand connection, and then you went on to describe Indigenous dramaturgies. And that to me is the most fascinating thing about what we've been developing over the past few decades. It sounds like you have too, but we have here, because we work cross-culturally. And what it has been for me developing an Indigenous dramaturgy, which is very much as you describe it, it comes from communication and conversation. It comes from saying things into the air and not making assumptions about anyone. But it is so important that we ground our work in the ways that we are in the world, which sounds like so, self-evident and easy. But after, all of our years of here on this land of colonization and being forced into the mainstream and into that model, to actually do the work to find the ways to tell our stories in the ways that we want to tell our stories, and then being generous in sharing those ways with our Pakeha, our other, colleagues who are not Indigenous, who are not of this land, the way I am of this land. Mind you, I'm like an Irish Indian half-breed. So I come from like two lands and two people whose languages were taken from them. And all of that informs, the way I've been developing a practice over the past 20 years. And it is so much about evolving, right? It is so much about who is in the room, because here we work not only cross-culturally with white artists, but cross-culturally within nations. Like we have so many nations here. And I was at Native Earth for almost a decade, and we were always working with like First Nations from across Turtle Island, who all have different value systems, all have different teachings, and having to negotiate when we were in rooms together, how we were going to work together, what the values were going to be. And a lot of that, has informed the way I'm working now, 10 years after leaving Native Earth, the way I work in the larger world. I work a lot in First Nations. I work a lot with, one of the things that we've discovered that we've been working towards is recognizing that those divisions are arbitrary, that theater is this, and dance is this, and opera is this, and storytelling is this, when in reality, those are false separations. And so we've been working to braid those things back together again. I am just going on and on. It's I listen to Dalia and then I'm like, I want to respond to that.
I think right. Everything that you just said resonates big time over here, and we've looked to you guys over there for over the many years. I mean, Rachel, co-artist, I use that Pakeha language because that's how she speaks for her identity as a settler in Australia, but we would call her Garia from this side. But yeah, I think having people like yourself and others that have been working in this space for so many years, as you're saying, and Australia being able to see examples of that work going on. And, in the same way, here in the Kimberley where I grew up, there are 35 odd different language groups with different language, different customary practices, all of these things. So it's just as complex just in this very small region, and not to mention the rest of Australia. So I guess those intercultural and trans-Indigenous and all of those things are quite natural in a sense when you're trying to find ways together to tell our stories the way we want to tell them. Hey.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was so excited when Michelle was talking about us doing this panel together, and I was like, wait, didn't she make Gooder Gooder, which my colleague, Michael Gray Eyes, talks about and talks about and talks about. It's so there's that dialogue going on even when we're not in the same room together, because Michael saw that work, talked about it. We were working on a signal piece here in Canada, and he was bringing what he had learned from that piece into the room with him. So in a way, you've been in my room.
I think it's fantastic. And, we've taken the words of people like Chadwick Allen and Michael Grey Eyes and others, we try to connect with people that have the same, these same curiosities with dramaturgy, and how do we articulate the way that we want to see our worldviews expressed in the art that we make and on the stages that we are privileged to take, or just in everyday life. There's so many things that the general community can learn from our ways of knowing and being, that benefit art, but every other aspect of life as well.
It feels like there's also that idea of what I'm hearing is, because we are in the room with ourselves and with other people from different nations, but also primarily Indigenous, right? That there's this building of community and relationality that's really, really important in the work and in community and in the layering of how we weave our lives in and around each other, and our work in and around each other, that really builds a really strong statement or a strong sense of something being in the world. And I know for myself, and talking to Angela and Starr about really this is a time for us to share what this is and what we've been doing for so long, because it has this vitality that is still feeding us, even though we're been led through this pandemic now for a good almost couple of years, but there's something that has really served the Indigenous community because we drop so deep inside of our values and inside of the values of why we make art. And then that has, I don't think we've been totally thrown off. I think it's been hard. I don't want to say that it hasn't been, but there's this deep grounding. It's almost like we're just dropped even deeper into our own grounding. And I think that also, that leads so nicely to the title of this talk, is where we stand. And because I think we're really standing from a place of strength right now. And I feel that it's a gift to be able to be a part of this conversation and to have my own thoughts about my own process. And I feel like we can lay the map for the larger community. So does anyone have a response to like that idea of this place that we're inhabiting in our work, in the rehearsal room, on stage, and how that can transform our whole arts community, our whole community? Anyone want to jump on that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like, I think you're right, Michelle, like the fact that we have not lost connection in spite of, again, I keep coming back to like 500 years of colonization, but still not gotten rid of, right? So having not lost that connection, and then when the world is in this huge flux, being able to hang on to those values and connect back to those values and be not surprised by the things that are going on is one thing. And also being able to recognize what is important in terms of the work we're doing. Like, what stories do we want to tell? What is critical to our well-being as human beings, as Indigenous people, but as human beings living in communities with other human beings? And how important is it that we can offer those lessons or learnings or knowledge at this point in time?
It's so true. There's kind of silver linings in some sense, even though it's obviously a huge pandemic that's affecting the world. But there are these silver linings where people have had to sit and focus and look in the mirror and decide where they're going from here. Why are they doing the things that they are doing? Having real conversations about, what's the use of being a part of this art industry if it's all collapsing, or if theatres aren't open? And I think what Indigenous people have, like we've all expressed, is that connection that won't go away. It'll always be there. Like you explained earlier, theatre is not separate from dance or song or storytelling or life. So those things, in our language, we call it nulu, and it encapsulates all of that. It's not only this or only that. It depends what you're using it for. If you're speaking about the dreaming story that goes with the with the song, or that's connected to the song line, that's connected to the those connections are interwoven beautifully in our culture. That all actually comes back to spirit and what we call lian, which is your not just well-being, but your everything, what makes you who you are. So yes, while we are artists or a dancer or a dramaturg or whatever we're working in, we are Indigenous people that have that connection that makes us who we are, and that doesn't go away because of a pandemic. So we can stand strong in this place where we are now, and we do have strength because people are looking to us to be parts of conversations, to open up doors and windows and the whole house to other perspectives, to grow ideas on how they can feed their processes in a positive way that is inclusive, that is diverse, that is, to me, that what should have been done for a long time, especially in decolonizing systems and recovering from the after effects, which, like you say, are continue every day since colonization.
Yeah, but it's like this. It feels to me like this is finally, there's a listening happening. It's like, oh, suddenly, oh, I want to actually hear what you have to say, and I'm willing to listen to the end of the sentence or the end of the paragraph, which is different. That is a thing that has been a really different experience for me in the last, really literally the last 18 months is just that. And I can suss out who is just wanting to hear from me so they can say they heard from me, and who actually is like, no, I really want to hear what you have to say.
I think there's also like the racial injustice has also been really, people have been seeking out, I'd say us, or like myself at times, around some of these really huge issues, especially around the unmarked graves at residential schools. And I feel what it's almost like it's rattled everyone so much that there is that focus of like, okay, so help me understand this. And it's because we've carried this grief or this trauma or the knowledge of this for so many years in our work, in the rehearsal room, you know, trying to raise our young artists to be strong artists. And we just been carrying it for so long. So when we are devastated as a community on a whole, I do feel like a lot of the non-Indigenous people are coming to me and saying, help, give me context, how I don't understand. And so that in a way has also been, has really put focus on our work and our words.
Yes. Yeah, I think there's, I don't know how to put this, but you know, I think we spoke about it before. This is not new for us too. We've just been cracking away at it for so long that it feels like a shift in the listening. And you know, with Muranko, we have our Indigenous intercultural choreographic laboratories where we can get together with other Indigenous people across the world to explore the ways that we handle these situations and how to decolonize our thinking, even in dance, like how, you know, it's just so complex that we've just got to keep chipping away at the ways to strip things back and really look inside and then look back out and share that so that people think and listen more clearly about each step of the way.
Yeah, that's great, because we've been thinking about decolonizing and working towards decolonizing for a long time. And this awakening that everyone else is in is like, ooh, okay, so this colonization thing's not so great. How do we approach this? And it's like, let's look to the people who've been actually
Colonized
all along. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would then I have a question for you of what is the thing or the thing that you do in the room, the rehearsal room, or the start of a process, start of writing, or start of the dance, that is something that you feel is free of being manipulated by colonization. I think you're probably going to be able to answer that. Yeah, I can ask it in another way, but like, what is the thing that you bring that you feel is very from the center of you, and it's a really true thing that you bring into the work? Maybe it's an exercise, maybe it's a way of working, a way of coming into the room. What is the room?
Yeah, I think for me, it is the room. Like, it's the way we make the room, right? And the articulation of values from the very beginning. It's like values, here are mine. What are yours? Here are, you know, and it is that sort of agreement of how we are going to make the space, how we're going to hold the space, so that we have a way to begin, so that we have a way, so we have agreements in place about how we're going to be with each other. And I think that's what my elder here says, the elder doesn't hold the knowledge, the elder holds the circle, and all of the circle holds the knowledge. And the elder just holds the circle. And that is very much, for me, something I've moved towards in the last decade or two, decade or 15 years, is like taking that structure and tipping it on its side so that everyone in the space feels their power. And then we can start to talk about the work that we're making.
Yeah, I would agree. In our process where we bring respect and value, and each artist has been invited into that circle equally, with value, with their perspectives valued equally, and our acknowledgements of where we are, and bringing ourselves together in that one space, whether you're from that place or not, acknowledging that. And under the studio floor's surface is country, and country is connected to all of us, whether we're from there or not, and acknowledging that, and acknowledging the history, which unfortunately brings in the colonization stuff, but at the same time, to create that space where we're all feeling culturally safe to share on the floor, and especially when it's co-divisive work. I love that the elder holds the circle that you've just shared, because in our practice, we often talk about, and Rachel speaks about it in her book, Dance on Contested Land, about the fact that no one person in the room holds the entire story. We all carry the different aspect, to tell the story, we need each other. And to understand the dramaturgy of the work that we work on needs every single one of us to be working in that space and on the dramaturgy. And those that are lucky enough to see the piece, those in the audience that might come from small communities, that may be initiated men or elderly women from Aboriginal communities, or they might be, someone from a city that has a total different worldview or understanding of these things, can take the multi-layers of understanding that we've built in there from all angles. We kind of work in that way, but it all starts from that beginning, creating that space where people feel an investment in what we're doing together and creating together.
It's like the process of right relations, right? Like building the right relations within the circle, the right relations within the earth, and then you have the sky, the spirit. And once that is all clarified, all that is accessible and feeding you as a human being, as an expressive human being, which is quite a beautiful, beautiful place to be. I know I've been in the rehearsal room. I think I've going back to like Map of the Land, Map of the Stars, when we were working in the Yukon. Yvette and I were up there doing this collaborative piece with these Yukon artists, and this map of the stars, UD, came in. One of the creators brought in this map, and it was just this whole cosmology that we were working, and we were working under this canopy, and we weren't even aware of it. And then it just slipped right in. Like, it's really quite profound. I find just being able to try to tap back in.
Yeah. And it's important to keep connection, like through the process. We even like, especially if you're looking at heavy content in pieces, to just create space for us all to just have, shut shop at an earlier time and go sit in country together and be, we don't need to be working on that. It's just to keep each other connected, and so that it doesn't become some kind of routine that, oh, this is how you create work. You just, kill yourself with hours and hours of relentless, movement or thinking or discussions about very, very heavy things sometimes. Lately, especially in our latest work, we've been calling it a Wellbeing Wednesday, and we just shut shop early and we go and have some cake in a park, or we, if we're in a city or here in Broome, we'll probably go sit by the ocean and look at the waves, or just anything that just keeps us connected. And often our labs do that. One in particular called Listening to Country, we took a whole group of dancers and creatives into site-specific places to hear from cultural leaders in those places of that country that would speak about not only the bugarigara, or the dreaming, the creation time, but talk about the 6 million old reef that it might be, or the from the science and from history, from warriors that came through that country chased by pastoralists that hunted them through the escarpment, and you sitting in the space looking at these magnificent escarpments, and it's overwhelming to take it all in, or push yourself into the sand and know that ancestors have been there. It fills you so much, and you can go back to the studio and face months of work in a room because you can carry that with you. So the importance of bringing that to any space is crucial.
Beautiful. So I'm wondering, I think it would be nice just to sort of think about these connections that we have across the ocean, to each other, to each other's communities, and why is that important, I guess?
Yeah, for me, it's about, the solidarity is about more makes more, right? And when we find these connections, it's like when we found, when Native Earth toured with Tawata and who was the other in the Honoring Theatre tour, that we traveled all over Canada, and then we traveled all over Aotearoa and Australia with 3 shows from 3 different peoples, and spent that time together finding what kind of connections we had. And that led to more profound relationships with Tawata, with Hone and Miria, where we started making work together and finding the connections. So we started making a piece called Waka Chiman Vaka, which is about a canoe. It means canoe in all of our languages, and talking about what the canoe meant in terms of how the water, it's the same water no matter where we are, that flows around us and holds us. And then out of that, what knowledges come out of the things that we share, and what are we concerned about? We find we're telling the same story. We're talking about climate change. We're talking about the destruction of the land and our responsibility to the land. And I think finding those connections globally does create a kind of a web around the world that helps us, if there's a way to repair that for everybody, with everybody. Like, it's like modeling good behavior, right? If we can model how we are connected and everybody sees that, then they know too that we're all connected. And then maybe we can start to do that work of healing everything. I know, not like no pressure, just heal everything.
That's it. Yeah, I think, the learning that goes on too about, in exchanges and in the sharing of your own work, and getting that feedback from, communities that might surprise you with their connections to a work, or a history, or an experience. We need each other's backup, if you like. We need to, one, expose our uniqueness in all the different nations so that people aren't blanketing what Indigenous culture is across the world either, and showcasing in a respectful way, of course, our uniqueness, not in some kind of, what do you call it, romanticized image
Right.
of what we want to say about ourselves and our lived experience and what our struggles and our celebrations. And we've looked to, we've worked alongside associate choreographer Serge Koulibaly, who comes from Burkina Faso in Ouagadougou in West Africa. And Rachel saw him on a trip over to Europe in I think it was a City Larbi or Alan Platal work in Les Ballets Saint-Denis, and had a meeting with him because he had a way, you could just see in his movement how he's worked with his traditional forms from, and many in the country where he comes from, and how he decolonized that. He takes what he you know, the knowledge that he holds in his body and his movement, and he's found processes of working with that in to tell contemporary stories and create contemporary dance, but carrying that with him. And so his invitation to come and work with people from the Kimberley and, you know, all over Australia, and then working together to try and find understandings between each other, but then how that can benefit a process where we can respectfully do those things here in Australia with, you know, the full brutal kind of taking away of stripping back of all of those things, like our traditional dance and our song and things like that has been devastated. So in some places, so we're very careful with what we can share and what we can't, and who shares that if you're not from there, but you learnt it in an institution, or, you know, there was all these conversations. But with Serge, he comes from a whole different place, which we thought we'd have a lot more in common in the way that we think about those processes, and we didn't. So then working, how do we do this? So I think you learn so much just connecting with people from other, you know, well, for us, we tend to work with artists from other colonized places, which doesn't leave a lot, there's not a lot of ground, you know, there's open smorgasbord there because not a lot's been untouched. But yeah, I just feel privileged to work with others that to uncover and discover, you know, the potentials for and the processes that we can do in safe ways, represent our own people in a way in these contemporary forms of storytelling, and finding new forms, but always carrying your old ones with you, you know, always.
My theater is starting to fill up, guys, so I'm going to move, and Michelle can talk while I'm moving into a different space. Go ahead, Michelle.
I think there's something really interesting too, because it's the meeting of bodies, right? Of space. And when I went over to Brisbane for the Danawaranara conference, and it was like the first day, and I was introduced as an international delegate in the room. And then it was really hit me. I was like, I am probably the first, like, this is the first Trondequichin woman that has been in this room, or has been in this relationship to all these different nations, all like from across the ocean, right? And so I felt like, well, what my responsibility, or my, in that moment, I sang a song from my community. And it was really emotional because it is this meeting of our bodies and meeting of our hearts, and then from there, that's when the relationship starts to be built. So I think so that's like, for me, those are those connections that are so amazing, and that when in that traveling, you do carry your community with you, you do carry your ancestors with you, and you have a responsibility because you're at the peak of that, right? And you you go out into the world, and there's a lot of care that you have to have. So I wonder, yeah, so I miss that, you know what I mean, miss that because I haven't been able to travel for so long. How have you been able to sort of still be in relationship to people across the world, yet not be able to be in physical relationship with breath and body and space?
It's hard, eh? Like, I mean, this has been a great benefit from the pandemic, is being able to meet like this and Zoom like this, but it's so short. Like this, like I recently got into a room with human beings and saw like their whole bodies, and there's so much we can't do in these little boxes. You know, we can't dance together. We can't breathe each other's air. The Zoom box has been a gift, and I appreciate it, but it's hard. It's hard to be this disconnected from body.
Yep, I totally agree. We're, as I mentioned, starting a week of rehearsals tomorrow with half the company in Broome and half the company in Sydney, and it's always valuable, but it's always a little tricky because especially when you have that memory of being in the room with each other, and you know, as choreographer, you're kind of, the way you're looking in is different, of course, and we're going to be able to do some things and we're not going to be able to do others, but yeah, very grateful that we are able to have some bodies in the room with each other, Rachel in Sydney and myself here in Broome. But Rachel and I haven't been in the same room for a very long time, and that is draining. And
Yeah,
we spend our Mondays like with a big long list of things to get through. But you know, I'm a dancer. I'm an artist. I want to be moving, and I feel rusty. I feel, you know, where our imaginations are making it possible to create platforms where we can get together on a local basis a bit more to develop those things. But I also teach language in my community, so I'm full-time doing that at a school, and you know, it's that time, and that disconnection and the distance creates these questions in you, like, am I still a dancer? Am I still this? And I wonder with other artists across the world what that's doing to their minds, and
yeah,
you worry.
yeah, and lots of them are leaving. Like that's
Yeah.
what I've found too, is like a lot of people are leaving theater, leaving dance, leaving the arts because something is broken. There's a connection that's broken, and nobody seems to know when we're going to be able to reconnect that. That's been a scary thing. And leaving also this world. I know several artists who have like left this world because of the losses. You know, so that's hard. And does that make the work that we do more important or less important?
Yeah.
It also, I feel like it's almost like we're in parts, right? Like we've had this part where we've had to communicate in this way. And then there's that, like, I think of the part where we all meet in imagination or in our dreams or in our, this cultivated space, I think that we've really had to tap into when we have these conversations, when we are collaborating across distance. So I'm really interested to see how, when the next part comes along, when we've cultivated this big space that we've all lived in, this really imaginative world that is really exciting and vital, and then we get into the room with our bodies. Like, I think it'll be a little like, you know, stop start, but I feel that there might be something quite profound that in that process, right? Just even, you know, that's like hugging someone for the first time in 2 years. Like it's a, right now, it's everyone I see that I haven't seen for 2 years. It's the first hug is so amazing. It's filled with so much more than it ever was filled before COVID. So yeah. Do you have any questions for each other or anything that you want to share? We're close to our time together, but I was wondering if there's anything that.
I'm just so, I'm so thrilled to be able to meet you, Dalia, like this. And I know that part of Australia a little bit because when we toured with Native Earth, we toured with Yawuru, and that started with a discussion in Perth. So I traveled to Perth to have a meeting, which is brilliant to me and now seems totally unreal. I traveled to Perth to have a meeting, and now in this world where we don't travel at all. So it's great to see you and to sit and watch you in what I assume is warm there, because it would be summer, and here it's like there's snow and it's -15. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the office, but yeah, it's the air condition is not on because it's a Sunday building, and I'm sweating. It's very hot outside. And yeah, there'll be a big tide today, so our tide movements are like can get up to 10-meter movements like this, so they come right up and then go right out. Nice. Creating amazing big mud flats and things like that. So yeah, a lot of life at the moment because it's coming up to our wet season. So new leaves on trees and animals out and about looking for food again now. So yeah, it's really hot and bit brutal, but it's beautiful. But I can't imagine. I just actually watched a little video of my son, my youngest son, who's now 4, but when he was about 1, we had the privilege of bringing a show called Cut the Sky to New Jersey, the university there. I'm just gone blank. And we got snowed in on our opening night, and they said it was the most snow that they had in goodness knows how many years. And my son got to touch snow, and he comes from Broome where you melt. And just watching the little video when he was like, he didn't understand it and he was trying to shake it off his hand because he could feel the pain of the coldness. And yeah, watching his little face like discover something brand new was amazing. But it brought back that feeling of, wow, we were so connected, you know, we were just building these tracks that we were planning to travel up and down on to develop connections further into both Canada and North America, like just yeah, and that just things being paused makes you feel like the energy. Yeah, you got to keep the energy and the motivation and these important conversations to one day make that happen still, you know.
Yeah.
But in terms of question, I don't have a particular question for you, Yvette, but what are you? Do you have anything coming up with Michael Grey Eyes? Any projects? Tell him I said hello.
I will tell him for sure, because I talk to him a lot. I just inducted him into the Dance Collection Dance Hall of Fame, so I got to see him in person for the first time since the pandemic started. But he's a movie star now again. So he's always, you know, the work that we've been doing, the dance opera and like all of the work that we've been doing is coming to an end because now he's a movie star. And he's always kind of been a movie star and supported the work that we do on the stage with his like movie starness. But now he's ascending again. Yeah, but I will pass on your regards because it's so great that we finally are connected in this way. And all of our work goes on in each other, right? Like it's so interesting what we're building just by being connected like this.
That's it. Yeah.
Well, I feel like that is a beautiful way to end the conversation. Just, reaffirming our connection and our commitment to our work, and really to, be where we stand and do it with integrity and honor and generosity. So it really does feel, it's been such a privilege to be a part of this conversation. Thank you so much, Yvette and Dalia, for sharing this time and your thoughts. And really, I think laying the groundwork for the rest of Dance in Vancouver. I feel like what you've shared is just, will sit with everyone and hopefully start to grow inside as we go throughout the whole gathering here in Vancouver.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
thank you. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks,
Yvette.
Yvette.
Michelle. So nice to meet you. See you. Thanks both.
Bye.
Bye.